Hi, this is Dr. Mike, host of the free iTunes podcast, Psychiatric Secrets Revealed with Dr. Mike. But I'm not talking about that today. I'm talking about saving money, once again looking at netbooks. For those of you who don't know it, netbooks are very small computers. They kind of look like the ultra-portable laptops, but they're not really full laptops. They typically have lower-powered processors. They don't have optical drives like that CD-ROM or DVD drive, and they're really designed for simple tasks like checking email, surfing the web, composing something in Word, checking an Excel spreadsheet. They're not designed so much for things like, let's say doing a heavy-duty Photoshop job or doing HD video editing or playing some very extensive 3D video type of game. But for most of us, we do those more simple tasks, and maybe you're thinking to yourself, I'd like a laptop, I need one for school or I need one for work, but I don't want to spend a lot of money. And these netbooks really can serve that need. So this is the Acer Aspire One, and here it is. As you can see, it's about the thickness of most of the other netbooks around there. This form factor is nice and small because this is the 8.9-inch screen. It's very lightweight. I would say it's lighter than most of the netbooks, just a little bit over 2 pounds. And it does have a lot of nice features. This particular one was reconditioned, as you see down here. The positive of that was that I got this particular netbook for about $250. It normally sells for over $300. But the negative was it didn't come with necessarily all the things that the brand new version comes with. So it did not come with the little plastic sleeve, the carrying kind of sleeve. It didn't come with the backup software to back up the disk drive because someone had already done that, and I guess you can only do it once. So it had a few negatives, but it had a lot of positives. This particular model is running XP. It has 1 gigabyte of RAM. It also has a 120 gigabyte hard drive, so plenty for most purposes. And it has a full complement of ports. So here we have our power port. We have our VGA output, so that's great if you need to do presentations on the road. It has an Ethernet port, a USB port, and here's kind of a unique SD card port. If you insert an SD card in here, the computer recognizes that SD card as an extension to the C drive. Less important when you have a big gigabyte hard drive, but much more important if, for instance, if you have the solid state drive, which could be only 8 or 16 gigabytes. This side has the nice color-coded microphone and headphone or speaker jacks. I really like the color-coded ones. It makes it easier to use. 2 more USB ports. You have a nice complement of that. A card reader that reads SD cards and other types of memory sticks and things. So that's really great. And, of course, your locking port. The style on the machine is nice. It comes in a variety of colors. This is your basic white, kind of a glossy finish. If you open it up, what you're going to see is this 8.9-inch screen with a very large bezel around it, good or bad depending on how you want to look at it. You have a webcam here and a single microphone, more than adequate for most person's needs. The display itself is very bright and clear and totally adequate. It is that 8.9 size, so it's going to be a little bit smaller than a 10-inch netbook, of course, but you can definitely see a web page all the way across. The keyboard is 89% of a normal keyboard. The nice thing that Acer did is they did put the keys in a normal configuration, so if you're a touch typist like I am, you're going to find that the keyboard, all the keys are where you're looking for them, and that's excellent. I am able to touch type on this keyboard. I have big hands. If you look here, they're kind of big guy hands. And because of that, what I found is that if I'm typing a short memo, no problem, like an email reply or something. But if I'm trying to type anything more than that, I start to get frustrated because I'm having to really consciously think where my fingers are just because of the size of the keyboard. The mouse pad is very small, and like a lot of other netbooks, you have the mouse keys on the side rather than below. These keys tend to be a little more narrow than, for instance, on the HP, and so they're a little more awkward to use. I would say that's also a slight drawback, not a deal breaker. What do I like about this particular computer? Well, I like a lot of things about it. What are some things that I don't like about it? Well, let's take a look at the bottom. You have this nice 3-cell battery, but this battery only lasts about 2, maybe 2.5 hours at most. So this is going to be inadequate if you're using this on a long flight to watch a movie. It's going to be inadequate if you're a student and trying to use it for a day's worth of notes. You can get a larger battery. If you buy that battery as an accessory, it's anywhere from $60 to almost $100 when I checked the web. It sticks out quite a bit. It is available, but that's going to add to your cost, so you have to be aware of that. If you look at the accessibility down here, you do have accessibility to memory, but not to replace the hard drive. I don't know why they do that. It'd be nice to be able to get at that if you wanted to for some reason. What I've read about the Acer is that the first bank of memory is actually soldered into the motherboard, so you really only have access to the second bank. And this one already has a gigabyte on board. Sound, I believe the speakers are here somewhere. Sound is actually pretty good and pretty loud, so the sound was better than average when it comes to most netbooks. So let's take a look at it on. Well, here we are with the computer on. You can see that the entire web page is visible, at least the width of it, with this 8.9-inch screen, and very clear and nice. The one thing I would say about this computer, when you load an initial web page, let's say you're just starting up that web browser, it does seem to take longer than some other netbooks. I don't know why that is the case, but it does seem to take a little bit longer. However, if you want to go to a web page, so we'll go to our usual, the Badger and Blade, which is a wet shaving web page. Let's see, it gets there. Well, it's taking its time there too. So you can see it's just a little bit slower. Here again, I think that is slower than some of the other netbooks. I have no idea why. And there it is. It scrolls pretty well. You can see there's a lot of text and graphics on this page. But it is, I think it is a bit slower on that surfing experience. No idea why. It should be the same because the components are basically the same. If we go and look at just my computer, so I'll go down there. That loads pretty quickly. If I go to the C drive, pretty quick. If I go to, let's say, something like program files, they're blacked. Pretty quick. I have this seems to be holding on to this little window here for some reason. Another little weirdity, but that's not typical of this computer. It's still there. So overall, I would say the performance of the computer is adequate. Web experience is a little bit slower than some of the other netbooks that I've checked out. But as far as running programs like your typical Word, your Office documents, that sort of thing, playing music, watching a little video that you've stuck on the hard drive, all that seems to be about the same. So what are some other positives or negatives about this computer? Well, one is it does have that three-pronged electrical cord for the power brick, which is a little more inconvenient. Some computers have it, some have just the dual prongs. The other thing that I've noticed about this, I'm going to try to put it up to the microphone here. I don't know if you can hear that. I don't know if you heard that or not, but it has this really annoying, whiny fan. In a noisy situation, you're not going to notice it, but if you're in a library or if you're sitting at home at your desk, it really kind of gets to you after a while, and it just is incessant. Most netbooks will power the fan on and off. This one seems to be mostly on, and then sometimes in like a super drive speed where it's really cranking it out. And I don't quite know why that is. I mean, it's the same components as every other netbook. So what would I say about this little computer? Well, it's definitely a good value because it's very cheap. I mean, $250 for a netbook with a 120 gigabyte hard drive is very cheap, and even if you bought the retail for $300 or so, it's great. But I do think that this battery needs to be upgraded to the bigger battery if you're going to make this a serious consideration. The other negatives about this, for me, if you're a person like me with big hands, this keyboard, which is usable, is just a little bit too small. I found that using the keyboards on, for instance, the Samsung netbook or the HP series netbook, I can actually use those to type something in a more serious way. This is a little more difficult, starts to get annoying, and that's a negative. So the fan, the battery life, and the smaller keyboard are things that you should consider. If you could afford a little bit more to get one of those little higher grade netbooks, especially one with a 10-inch screen, I would say that might be a better choice. Go for the little bit longer battery life too. If you're really on a strict budget or if your needs are somewhat limited, this one should do the job. So I'm recommending it with reservation.